Hey, it's Just So Trish, and it is another part of the series with Amanda at the Fundamental Home. Okay, this one is great. I'm actually giving you the whole slice of the conversation that happened after, like, one of my kids interrupted. And it really just fell into place about how rigid academics is not necessarily meaning that you are learning. And it doesn't mean in order to learn and be educated, you have to have rigid academics. And I think that Amanda does an amazing job just through her experience and through her just, God has blessed her with just so much information. So I'm so thrilled to have this part in here. And I felt like it was definitely a call to me. And one thing I've really been holding on to, Amanda always says, a tried and true method. And you know what? That's right. So here we go. Don't forget to go check her out, and I have a link to her video. And always remember to like and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do. And don't forget to subscribe to Amanda's channel at the Fundamental Home. And we will see you again next week because I have another one. Here we go.
Sesame Street. Because I use Sesame Street to maintain the chaos.
Again, it's been effective for 30 years. Sesame Street is a legitimate learning tool.
You know what? Just like scrap what I want to do. Let's just talk about the fact that let's tackle the whole idea that everything we've been doing is bad and we need everything new, shiny, and screen time's horrible. Don't do this, don't do that. You know, can we go there?
I mean, you can. I think the whole idea that people are very rigid in what they think of academics, you know, and they have a very narrow idea that it has to be a textbook and it has to be a workbook. And unless your child is sitting at a desk, you know, scribbling diligently, you know, a 5-page essay for hours, then they're not actually accomplishing anything. And that's not the case. You know, a lot of things that children learn, they learn just from everyday life, and people don't value those experiences the way that they should. So like this past week, I was at my co-op, my homeschool co-op, and moms were talking to me about how I taught my children to write. And I told them how we did it, and they were kind of surprised at our method. And I asked them if their children took sermon notes. And they kind of looked at me funny, and they said, well, you know, they draw pictures and they do a checklist where they find how many times they say the word Jesus, or, you know, there's different little pages that they print off the internet that you find on Pinterest or whatever. And I said, well, what we did was we taught our children to take sermon notes. You know, they had to figure out what the title of the sermon was, and they had to figure out the points of the sermon. And usually those were alliterated, so they were kind of easy to figure out. But the pastor doesn't say, you know, this is the title of my sermon necessarily every time. And he say, my first point is forgiveness. My second point is faith. And my third point is, I don't know, the future, whatever. Usually they're alliterated. And then there's the conclusion. And we also have them write down the supporting passages of scripture that go with those points, right? And so we start that when they're very young, maybe depending on their ability, you know, between 8 and 12, somewhere in there. And we started having to break down sermons. And that's actually very helpful as far as their writing, which nobody makes that connection because they start to see how things come together. So when they're younger, you're focusing on the structure of a paragraph. Well, the structure of a paragraph is an introduction, and then you have your 3 supporting, you know, sentences, and then your conclusion sentence, which is just a rewording of that introduction. And so then when they start doing an essay, you have your introductory paragraph, and you have your 3 supporting paragraphs, and then you have your conclusion paragraph. And as you get to larger and larger essays, it still keeps that same form, but they don't learn it from sitting and reading a book and having a workbook and it telling them, you know, this is how an introduction sentence should look. They learn it from hearing it over and over and writing notes on it and figuring out how things come together. And what they learn to do is, number 1, make the structure, and number 2, make an effective argument. Because then what we do is we'll sit around and talk about, you know, it just as a family at dinner, the sermons that we hear and our thoughts on it, how it relates to our understanding of the Bible. And so we figure out, was that an effective argument? Is there a better argument that would have worked? Or, oh, you know, they really should have talked about this particular passage of scripture. And so even though it has absolutely no writing involved in it at all from a creative standpoint. You know, our children aren't creatively writing, they're listening to something and taking notes, but it is teaching them to write, so that once they get to be about, when we actually teach writing a little later, I don't require any essays at all, any long-term papers until they're in high school. Which I know some people do that when their children are 3rd, 4th grade, and we just don't do that. I do paragraph writing because I want them to learn some basic structure. But I don't do any major papers until they're in high school, and even then I keep it minimal because we start college early. And so I want to make sure they're not burned out from paper writing, because they're going to be writing a lot of papers once they get to college. So, so like I said, there's a lot of things that people don't give respect to. As far as teaching tools and teaching methods that have absolutely nothing to do with a textbook or a workbook.
Okay, so like you've completely hit on somebody that I've dealt with before. And so it's a mom who's kind of perpetually she's on her 3rd child, putting them into college at 14. And she gets into, she's like, it's not a curriculum. It is a method. We're about learning a method to learn what we need to do. And I can be very guilty of this, and where I just want to say, here's my curriculum, we have to do this. You know, that is in my nature to do. But, you know, the sermon notes are genius, are absolutely genius. And it really comes down to, you know, learning. And sometimes writing gets really caught up with, let's do the thinking process. No, somebody could have a lot to say, but has no idea how to do the structure in order to get through. And that was a big one for me, that to learn myself, was that structure was rough. But only to realize the structure is actually very mechanical.
It is. You know, I taught a writing class in my homeschool co-op. I actually think I've taught it a couple times. And when I taught Christian school before, and I used the same curriculum. I did use a curriculum for it, but it was a very simple, like, cheap workbook. You could get it any place. It's actually called Ready, Set, Write, if anybody wanted to look at it. But I absolutely love it. And
I have been looking at that curriculum because I think it's set for middle schoolish.
I think so. I used the 5th grade one, but I've used it for grades from 3rd grade all the way up through 8th grade. And I usually use it now in the co-op form. I just take my favorite parts of it and do it, you know, one class every week for 8 weeks. And I really enjoy using it. But a lot of the lessons that we learned from doing Ready, Set, Write, you know, when I have this classroom full of children of all different abilities and all different interests, I remember there was one young lady that she was very poetic. You know, when she wrote, it wasn't structurally right as far as if she were in a classroom, she would have gotten marked off tremendously, because I think her sentences were like, wind blows, horses run, it's a beautiful spring day. You know, and it was just all of her sentences were like that. They were more poetic in nature and not necessarily like a paragraph. Do you know what I'm saying? And so I felt that she had actually been pulled out of the public school setting, and I wanted to encourage her in her writing, because the fact was you could recognize from her writing that her gift as far as creative writing was in the form of poetry. So I immediately said to her, you are a poet. This is really excellent for the poetry form. You should focus on that. And so even though we were doing creative writing for other things, I allowed her to do hers in a poetic style, and she blossomed. Her mother told me for weeks and weeks and weeks how much she had always fought her own writing. She never could get her to write. It was a drag. Now all of a sudden she wanted to write. She wanted to go get poetry books, and she wanted to write all day long. And it was just because she'd been encouraged to do what she was already good at. And once she got encouraged to do it, and once she was in that place where she really loved writing, then she began to explore other kinds of writing. And then she decided she wanted to learn the mechanics. And before you know it, her mechanics improved. And she had gotten to the point where she could write essays just, in fact, better than the rest of them, because she had this real love for expressing herself and communicating. And of course, writing is a communication skill. So if you're not able to communicate effectively in person, then you're not going to communicate effectively in writing. So it was just helping her to understand that and blossom.
Okay, so let's let